Right about now, you are listening to the Legacy and Leadership Podcast, a show where we discuss living as a leader worth following, leading others to do the same, and in doing so, leaving a legacy for future generations. My name is Jimmie Gonzalez Jr., a learning and development professional and leadership coach, sitting down with my co-host Anthony Devon Watts Jr., an expert contact center leader that has effectively led and developed dynamic teams with high motivation. Together, we have over 30 years experience in the corporate game. Join us as we discuss our growth as leaders, share the lessons we've learned, and interview others to see how their leadership style was shaped as they were mentored by adversity. Hello, legacy leaders. This is your co-host, Jimmie Gonzalez Jr., coming at you again with episode number 11.
Hey.
Yes. With my co-host, Anthony Devon Watts Jr.
Oh, thank heaven.
Appreciate everybody for listening. Hey, 3 quick things that we would ask of you. Number 1, subscribe. Subscribe, download, like, hit the little alert button if you're watching us on the YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate that. Step number 2, whether you're checking us out on the podcast, if you're watching the YouTube channel, go ahead and take a screenshot and then go to Instagram, tag me at coach_Jimmie G Jr., or definitely tag Devon as well at leadership docent, and then tag us at legacy leadership as well. We would appreciate that. Again, take a screenshot, post it on Instagram, tag us, leave some comments, let us know what you think about the episode. We would greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And then step number 3, share. Share with your friends, share with your family, and share with other leaders that you work with, that you know, that you feel would definitely benefit and get some value, again, from the goodness that we are dropping for you every week.
Every week.
Yes, sir. So if you can do those 3 things, again, our legacy leaders, we appreciate you guys very, very much. So what's good, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I know we were, kind of catching up a little bit before we got started here, and just sharing with you a little bit about my day. It was a productive day, but I'm glad some of that work is behind me. I am looking forward to watching some of these playoff games. It's heating up for me, and I am a big fan of competition, and I got to say, I am a huge fan of petty. And I just love the pettiness that Chris Paul is showing right now in this Oklahoma-Houston series. I'm here for it, every minute of it. I was sharing with one of my leaders that I just get the sense that actually my leaders and my barber. Shout out to my barber, Bladed Luxury, on Instagram. If you're in the Miami area, South Florida area, check him out. Bruh's nice, as you can see. But I was sharing with them that, I feel like Chris Paul is more motivated to send Houston home than he is to actually win a ring. I feel like if he sends Houston home, that will be a greater feeling.
That's a win for him, yeah.
Than actually getting a ring. So I'm here for it, man. He's a super competitor. I love that fire. I love that fire in and just leadership in general, and so he personifies that to me. He's a leader of people for sure. Somebody who can help motivate people to get beyond the odds or the expectations, and he does not back down if he believes in his team. And I love every minute of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't been watching enough, but I think to your point too, this is the point where I definitely need to start paying a little bit more attention. So it's just been it's been weird, the whole season, obviously with everything going on. It's like virtual reality. So, and the crazy thing too is, I don't play video games like that, but I've seen enough. Sometimes it really does look like you're watching a video game because you have the virtual fans in the back, and that they're piping in, fan noise and cheers, and it's just it's weird. It's weird. But
that's true. Yeah, that's a good call out. I guess I'm not that thrown off because I play games pretty heavy.
Yeah.
In fact, I stumbled across. I found myself inadvertently a part of a new squad of gamers. How when you usually play games together, you got your little team that you link up with, right? So my oldest, Gio whenever he's at his dad's. Like, normally when he's here, we play together. He'll be on the Switch, I'll be on the PlayStation. We'll play Fortnite. And then he's been inviting like his stepbrother and cousins, and so we'll end up playing a couple rounds together. And so now I've gotten some respect from the 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds. They're like, "Oh man, Anthony's nice on Fortnite. He's a beast, right?" So this week he's back with his dad, and this boy calls me at like 7:30, 8 o'clock or something like that, and he's like, "Hey, Dad," and I'm like, "What's going on, man?" Because he never really calls me like that. Like when he's over at his dad's and like he's hanging out with his brother, like he's just in it, right?
Yeah.
We have to chase him down to just check in and see like, "Hey, are you good? How things are going?" So he calls me out the blue. He's like, "Hey, Dad." I'm like, "Hey, what's up, champ?" And then he's like, "Oh, nothing. What you doing?" And I was like, I said, like, my schedule hasn't really changed. Like, I'm finishing up work, and then like I'm getting ready to eat. And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing." I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh no, just sitting here playing some Fortnite." I said, "Champ, did you call me because you wanted me to hop on?" He's like, "I mean, if you want to." I'm like, "All right." So I hop on. So now,
That's cute, yeah.
like these past, gosh, I want to say maybe like 4 or 5 days, bro. I've gotten a call almost every single day from Champ to hop on Fortnite with him, his brother, his cousins, right? So like I'm sitting here gaming with these 9, 10, 11-year-olds, right, for a couple of hours, and them just laughing and cracking up and just doing what little kids do. Shut up. And I'm just like, how did I find myself here? like I just really wanted to spend time with my son. Like, how I found myself here. But he actually called me right before we started. I was like, "Bob, I can't do it tonight. Like, I got a pod." I said, "I can play tomorrow." And he's like, okay, we'll try and level up without you. So, yeah. So now this has become like a part of my gaming life. But yeah, I guess that's probably kind of like because I game so much. It's probably kind of the reason why it doesn't really bother me seeing like how they have it set up. Because you're right, it is very much like if you've ever played NBA 2K or something like that. Like it's the same camera angles, it's the same like the virtual fans and like the whole nine. So yeah, it's like the video game came to life like with real players. So that's kind of dope. That's a good call out.
Yeah. So Gio's trying to build him a squad. He needs some assistance trying to level up. Already the young buck we've been talking about building teams.
Yes, he's team building.
He is team building him a high power Fortnite team. We'll level up next time when you have a chance.
Legit.
That's funny.
That is really funny, yeah. But sure, he is team building. He's going out there. He's trying to attract the different type of talent, and he's like, "Oh, these people I'm not going to play with." And like, if he ends up playing with people that he actually likes, he ends up saving them as a contact. And he's like, "All right, these kids like, oh yeah, that kid was pretty cool. Let's see if we can friend him, and like, I can save him as a contact so that we can play and stuff like that." But yeah, he's like sitting here trying to GM a whole squad, a whole Fortnite squad. Like, bro, relax.
That's cool. No, it's good that you had those times, man. Those moments, you can never get that back. So that's awesome. Yeah,
that's true.
My day has been pretty good, man. I told you, last night was pretty fun. Actually, that was a weird situation too. So we saw Tenet, and went to the movie theater for the first time, probably since January. Took that step. Obviously, we were all masked up and all that kind of stuff. There wasn't a lot of people. It was a Monday night anyway, so.
Did we go to? Was it you and me who went to the movies in January when we saw? Was that when we saw John Wick, or was that before January? That was before January.
Yeah, that was 2019.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man, this quarantine got the time going crazy. That's probably like the last time I've sat down in the movies. I mean, that movie was awesome. John Wick was awesome. The last John Wick was awesome. But yeah, so you were saying this is your first time since January going to the movies, and like kind of how was the experience, man? How did they have everything like set up? And
I mean, they had hand sanitizer. Obviously, they had like a lot of signs making sure that you're wearing your mask and stuff like that. But besides that, now of course, when you're buying the tickets, so we had originally we bought 3 tickets, and then the seats, that are going to be next to you will be empty, right? So I think they're keeping at least 1 seat, empty in between. But that was it. Everything else, it was pretty much kind of a normal experience. Like I said, it was really empty though too. So I think that had something to do with, I guess, maybe feeling a little bit more normal. As far as they checked I think they did check us as we walked in.
Your temps.
Yeah, as well. But I mean, that type of stuff, like it's the new normal, right? So you're just kind of used to all of those things already too. So it didn't really seem out of the ordinary. But yeah, it was just crazy being back in the movie theater. So the last movie I remember seeing was with Stacy at the beginning of the year. I believe we saw Bad Boys. Was that Bad Boys 3? Yeah, the newest one that came out.
I still haven't seen that. I'm asleep.
You are super funny, super funny. No, it was actually better than we had expected it to be. So yeah, they delivered for sure. But yeah, so did that last night. Today, kind of another normal day at work. Same challenges and kind of same stuff that we're working on. Projects still going on and stuff like that. So just moving forward, bro. Moving forward. But I definitely want to to get back into this conversation. So we've kind of been doing a little bit of a series over the last couple of episodes. We talked about building a high power team and that word affinity and what that really means and the benefits of having a team with high levels of affinity. And we took a little bit of a step back again and said, hey, let's also talk about as you're going through the process, which you literally are now, of building out your team and adding pieces, really figuring out what are the strengths of the team and how do we assess the strengths. We talked about specifically Strength Finder, Myers-Briggs. We also talked about DISC and just some of these different assessments that you can go through and the importance of doing those. One, for assessing your team, for finding strengths so you can build off of those strengths, know where your gaps are at, but also for communication so that you can communicate more effectively with each other as teammates as well. So then we left off, and our legacy leaders know that in the next episode, boom, this one here, now that we have, those steps in place and you're going through the interviewing process, what are some things that we should be thinking about? What are some elements that we should really be focusing on when we're going through the interviewing process to help us? Definitely not an exact science, as much as we've done it and as good as you try to, get at the skill of interviewing. But as you're going through that process, how do we make sure we know what the gaps are? How to make sure we're selecting the right people that are going to help us fill those gaps and then help take the team to the next level. So one of the things that you mentioned to me that I wanted you to unpack a little bit more is you said don't over-index, kind of one way or the other. And you mentioned a few different areas which you shouldn't do that. So kind of talk to me a little bit about, again, not over-indexing, and as a leader, and I'm going through this process, how do I figure those things out?
Sure. So it's funny because when I think about the interview process, again, everybody, if you've been listening, 10, 11 episodes in, I am wired from a sports perspective. And so I always think about it like I put on my my Ozzie Newsome cap, and I'm like, all right, I'm a talent scout now. You know what I mean? I'm going to go to this combine. Every interview is like a combine, and I'm getting to 40 times. I want to see how they jump. I want to see, the lateral movement, all that stuff, right? But essentially, you're assessing these various skills, right, through this interview process. And to your point, it's not an exact science at all. In fact, I would argue that there's things that you learn over time as you get enough reps in, and that you kind of see enough candidates and you go through this process and you learn and refine what you're evaluating for. Not only do you refine your functional skills from an interviewing perspective, but you actually continue to refine your gut. And I do believe that gut plays a role in it as well. In fact, I'm a firm believer, just, from a leadership perspective in general, I think sometimes we make the mistake as leaders of, as we grow and as we learn more stuff and get introduced to more information, we start to rely more and more on information and theories and data and less on our gut. And it's a mistake that honestly you can make, because you have to remember that part of the reason why you even got to where you're at as a leader is because you've proven time and time again your gut to be right. And so it's not ignoring your gut, but it's about leveraging your gut instinct in conjunction with these other things
Mm-hmm.
to really be able to make the most effective decision, right? But I think the first place it really starts when you're talking about like not over indexing for me is I think talent mix is one thing that's really important to kind of think about as you're building your team. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that you have a healthy blend of internal and external talent within your team. And for a couple of reasons, right? I would say, from an external perspective, you don't want to over-index on internal talent because if the bulk of your team is promoted from within, while there's some, benefits, some tangible benefits from a morale perspective, you really limit your ability as an organization to keep up with the different ideas, innovations, and just kind of train of thoughts that exist in the marketplace, right? I think, for you and I both, as we've gotten a chance to meet other candidates that come from different backgrounds, different walks of life, or you just start like attending conferences. I know that you've attended a couple learning and development conferences, and you start talking to other people in that space. You start to realize like, oh man, there's a whole bunch of other stuff out there that people are doing or they're using to innovate that I wasn't even exposed to because I've been operating kind of in this incubator for my squad, right? And so being able to attract external talent allows you to get introduced to those concepts or those ideas and then incorporate them into your organization in a way that didn't exist before. So I think that's really important. But on the flip side, you don't want to over-index from an external perspective either, because I've just seen it where, the organization is hell bent on we only hire people externally. Like even if you come in as a agent, like there's really not an opportunity to work your way up because you want to attract the external talent, right? And so not only do you impact the morale of your organization because you have folks that have been with you for a long time and they kind of see like, hey, there's not a way forward for me. But also you put at risk a little bit of the institutional knowledge that's necessary in those rooms to be able to make effective decisions for the business. Like if I'm an external, like the situation I'm in right now, there's parts of the business that I have no understanding of or experience in because I haven't learned it and I didn't come up through the ranks. And so when it comes time for me to be able to make decisions for the organization or kind of to speak on how these things will impact those parts of the business, I can't be the subject matter expert. I have to tap somebody who's an internal and leverage their experience, and together we're able to make a refined decision. But if I didn't have internal talent to be able to pull from, I'm going to be making those decisions absent of that experience. And that can be pretty risky to do as well. So I would say even before it starts, like you start interviewing a specific candidate, I think as a leader, you have to really start thinking about, your talent mix, right? What is my current talent mix? And then what am I trying to get after, right? If the bulk of my team is internal, and maybe I don't have an internal candidate that is, clear cut above the rest and kind of I've been grooming and ready for that next step, like don't settle on just saying, well, we got to make sure that we hire somebody external or internally. Explore what the options are externally. And I would say that's probably true now more so than ever in this environment, unfortunately, where a lot of really talented individuals have been displaced or impacted because of furloughs and the impact that COVID has had on businesses. That some of that external talent that you may not have been able to attract or have been in the market for, that you actually have an opportunity to be able to bring them on board and introduce that train of thought to your organization. So you definitely owe it to yourself to explore it.
Yeah, that's why I was, very excited with the instructional designer position I was looking to fill. Even going through this process a year ago, while we were very happy with the candidate that we landed on, I can just see the difference in the level of talent, the experience. I also knew that, kind of going into it, again, just with the connections I've been able to make over the last year, it is unfortunate. You just, I see a lot of very talented instructional designers that, have been furloughed or just laid off of work due to the circumstances that we've been experiencing over the last several months now. But that, again, that was a good thing, is that there's some really, really talented people out there, and you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the team, as well. And there's always, that healthy friction when you're bringing somebody from the outside that has a different way of viewing things, has these different talents, these different experiences, and again, in a very healthy way, can challenge our thought process and ask the right questions. Hopefully, if we made the right decision, they're going to come in asking a lot of very thoughtful questions that maybe we haven't even thought of before, that again triggers some different thoughts, different perspectives, and provides us a different path, to solutions that we hadn't considered before.
No, you're spot on. I would also say the other thing too, because you talk about, excuse me, you talk about the healthy friction that exists. I think it's important too, as a leader, for you to have clarity. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's really important for you to have clarity and define what it is that you're looking for in the candidate, before you even go through the interview process, because as you go through that process, you're going to have to manage some external pressures from different stakeholders that may be, looking to close out recs as quickly as possible. Like, I'm just thinking about, the experience you and I have had over the years, right? And I love, the HR professionals I've had the opportunity to work with, the recruiting and talent acquisition professionals I've had the opportunity to work with. But I do think that at sometimes, there's that risk aversion that they have, because they want to make sure, well, hey, we're going through this process. This person is interviewed. They're still in the market. Like, if you like them, then just make the decision. Like, can we just hire them? Like, and there's kind of that urgency to say, hey, make a decision. But I would just share with leaders and hiring managers, people that are making those decisions, to stay firm in what you've identified your needs are for your organization, and to not settle, because I think, worse than not making a hire is making a bad hire, right? Making a bad hire. And we've all had to, at one point or another throughout our career, live through the ramifications of making the wrong hiring decisions. And maybe because we've succumbed to the pressure of, okay, well, I need to get staffed, I need to bring somebody on board, right? Or, yeah, they're right. Yeah, I have been, I've had a couple interviews and I still haven't found exactly what I want, but like, this is kind of close enough. Like, if I had to settle, right? When you start to go through that justification in your mind, or that rationalization in your mind, I would just say trust your gut and understand that, hey, there's maybe some danger there. I'm all for making, giving people opportunities and making calculated risk, and chances, right? And saying, well, hey, this person, maybe they don't have 100% of these things, but some of the things they've been able to speak to, or the competencies they've demonstrated, and, how they talked about how they would go about learning, lead me to believe that, hey, this person is worth the investment, and I know this is going to be a long haul project, right? So I'm not saying we shouldn't, take flyers from time to time as a leader, and make investment in people that maybe do not have this long, drawn-out resume, but that's different from settling. And so it's important for you as a hiring manager, you do not acquiesce to that, and you just kind of manage those expectations. And that pressure, I hear you, and yeah, I hear you, but at the end of the day, I got to live with this hiring decision. I get for you, like, oh, they've been through the interview process, it's been 2 weeks now, right? And we need to close loop and communicate with the candidates, but, I'd much rather have them wait another week than to make the wrong hiring decision and then have to try and performance manage that person out over the year. Yeah. And have to deal with all that and the impacts that it has on the business. So please, hiring managers, if you're listening, or if you need validation, or if you need guidance, we've all been through that struggle as operators. And I'm telling you, again, stay firm in what you're looking for and do not compromise, because when you do that, you create danger for yourself, danger for the organization, and it's hard to undo those things.
One of the biggest decisions that you can make is who you bring onto your team, and you have to protect that. You have to see kind of the we always talk about, from a training perspective, protecting the sanctity of the learning environment in the classroom. But even with that team, again, you know what it is you're looking for. You know the makeup of the current team. You know what you're trying to build. And yeah, you may have good candidates, but I'm not looking just for good candidates. I'm looking for great candidates. And it is a partnership, right, between, the operator and the hiring manager and the recruiter, HR. And sometimes, there needs to be some healthy pushback and just challenging them. Like, no, I know what I'm looking for. Continue to work through your processes, or do like I did and jump in there and help as well, and start posting stuff on LinkedIn and doing what you need to do to assist in that process, right? Again, especially if you have, that's what those type of platforms are for, to network, to get to know people, and to make some of these processes a little bit easier if and when needed. So, but again, one of the most important decisions you can make is who you bring into your team. So guard that, because it's very critical, and people are watching, especially in your position, where you're still new, right? You're still new, and people are watching the decisions that you make and how you operate. So it's always, in any case, it's always important, but definitely when you're in a new situation, people want to see, how you think about those things, how you go about doing those things. I think even to a certain extent, are you going to hold true to that, right? If you say, no, this is what I'm looking for, I'm going to wait, I'm going to make sure that we find, again, not the best or perfect candidate, but I'm going to find what I'm looking for. Are you going to hold to that, when there's those external pressures that you mentioned earlier? So,
yeah, man. I mean, and we'll button this one up before we move on to the next one. But I would just say, kind of going back to my scouting analogy or whatever, right? A lot of, like, for any organization, when you get a new coach, you are tied forever to your very first draft pick.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know what I mean. And your fate as a coach could be determined about by your ability to identify the right level of talent, and that could impact the trajectory of your franchise for a while, right? So to your point, and I've always shared this with a lot of my leaders, when I've talked to them about their hiring decisions, because again, I don't hire for you. You pick your people. You need to feel confident in your people, and then if I'm just not satisfied with them, you're gonna hear my mouth about it. Right, and if you made a great decision, I'm going to tell you how great your decision making was. But what I was telling them, like, you really need to start thinking about what you're looking for, because you send a message to your current direct reports and your peers and your support system what you value as a leader by the very first hiring decision that you make. Like, people see that, right? And so you send a message to them about what you value based off the very first hiring decision that you make. And so just give it that level of care and that level of diligence, and just understand that you will forever be tied to this individual, in the decision that you made. So, take it with that level of seriousness.
Yeah, for sure. So you know what you're looking for. You're going through, kind of starting the process, and then the resumes start to come in.
Yeah.
You're taking a look at the resumes, or even when you're getting ready to sit down and interview, you've already taken a look at the resume. But at least for me, I always go over it again, start highlighting some specific things that maybe I want to ask. Once the interview starts. But you said that there were some specific things for you that you look for as you're going through the resume. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So what I will say before I even dive into that is, for folks that are listening, I don't know if you ran into this, but since we've started the podcast, I've had candidates for different roles that I've been interviewing for do their diligence as they should, and they've found us on LinkedIn, and then they start listening to the podcast, and then they start using this to get prepared. So if you're listening to this episode, you get the benefit of giving some insight into what I'm looking for, and so kudos to you, for doing your diligence. This is the benefit of preparation, so congratulations. Right, but some of the things that I really start to look for, foremost when I'm looking at a resume, is I'm less concerned, initially about the specific roles or the specific jobs that they held, right? I think recruiting is doing some of that vetting anyway, and when I look over it, I'm doing a quick pass to say, yeah, does this make sense? Like, kind of, what is their experience? But really what I'm paying attention to first and foremost, and I know we talked about this in the last episode, the importance of communication, right? I'm really paying attention to, like, how do they communicate, written communication. So much of what we do is, tied into not just verbal communication, right? But we're, especially in this environment, right? We're sending Skypes, or we're sending, IMs, we're sending emails, we're, drafting SOPs, we're writing out processes, we're doing all of this stuff, right? And so your written communication is extremely important. And I think, your resume is kind of that initial impression of, hey, this is how I express myself in written form. This is a summary of the things that I've done or achieved, and this is how I'm able to speak to my contributions. Right, like I'm getting all of that from your resume. So I pay a lot of attention to the written communication. So that's first and foremost, and then I use that to make decisions or to have an impression about this candidate, right, from a communication perspective. Now, written is not 100% of it, because then you got the verbal, so you have somebody who writes really good, or maybe they use a resume service, right, or somebody like that, so somebody's been able to kind of polish it up, so that's great. Now, how well do you actually speak to your accomplishments and the things that you've done? But I do use it as information. The next thing is, and I kind of talked about the fact that I don't put a lot of stock necessarily into like getting into the nitty gritty of the resume and those things, because I would expect that those things are coming to light through our discussion, right? And so one of the questions that I love to ask to kind of get it jump started is, I'll ask somebody, hey, so I have your resume here in front of me. I've had an opportunity to review it before, but I think it'd be really helpful if you just kind of walk me through your experiences and how did you get to where you're at, and the various positions that you've held, right? And I love that question because I feel like it's really telling for a couple of reasons. One, even if this person is just walking through their experiences, as they're telling you their story of how they got to where they're at, they're also exposing to you how they make decisions, right? What do they value in a role, in an opportunity, right? What do they gravitate towards? And then obviously some of the things that they've accomplished. So I'm able to hear, not only are you able to speak to your accomplishments, but more importantly, how do you go through the decision-making process when you're making arguably one of the most important decisions you can make in your career, which is, what is your next opportunity, right? What do you decide to take on? Who do you decide to tie your talent to? All of those things, right? And so when I hear people expressing that, hey, they pursued, a position because it paid more money, right? That's information. Excuse me, that's information. When I hear people express that, they wanted to get, diversity in their experiences, right? That's information. When I hear people say that they gravitate towards roles where they want to help, or they can provide support for brand new employees that are maybe struggling or transitioning for the first time in this industry, that's information, right? And so the more information that you get, the better you're able to make decisions and start to compare that to the existing makeup of your team. How does that fit into the motivations of my team? How does that fit into the overall vision that I've laid out for the team? How does that fit into maybe where we're currently at in the organization? Maybe I have somebody who, their mindset is, hey, I go where the money's at. You know what I mean? And so I'm bouncing around from position to position until I find the money. I'm not mad at that. If that's been working for you, do you, right? But for me, I may not be in a position as an organization to be able to, one, either compete from a financial perspective, or two, be able to fulfill that hunger of always chasing down the money, especially if I know this is going to be a long-term build, right? This is going to be a long-term project, and so you're probably going to realistically be in this role for about 1.5 to 2 years. That's what I have in my mind for your development, right? For anybody that's in this role. And so if you're accustomed to, I'm looking for 6 to 9 months and then I'm on to the next, we may not be a good fit for one another. It's not anything bad about you or anything bad about me. It's just you also have to take into consideration, does the position that I have to offer meet the needs of this candidate as well? Because I want it to be a good fit. I don't want to bring you into the organization under false pretenses, and then when you get here, it's like, all that stuff that you thought was probably going to happen or a possibility, and you said that you valued, I knew from the jump that I couldn't meet those needs, but you're really, really talented, and so I just wanted to wing it and see if I can get you to at least stay for a while. Because even if that may be the case, what quality of work are you going to receive from that individual? So I just think you got to use all that information, and so you get a lot from just asking people to walk you through their story. And I'd never forget. I never forget. I don't know if it was my pops who said it. I think my pops did pass this on to me. I don't know who he got it from, but I remember even as a youngin, my pops used to tell me, man, you gotta, whenever you're talking with people or interacting with people, man, you just gotta talk to them about their favorite subject. And I'm like, how do I know what somebody's favorite subject is? Like, I'm just meeting them for the first time. He's like, bro, everybody got
Always
the same
them.
favorite subject. Yes, it's them. I said, asking questions about themselves, that'll give you a lot of information, right? Like, everybody's favorite subject is themselves. And so that's just always stood with me. So I always start the interview off by saying, hey, walk me through your experiences and how did you get to where you're at, because people love to tell their story, and I'm enamored by it. I want to hear it and use the information to make an effective hiring decision.
So 2 things that I wanted to say after that, kind of giving you guys some cheat codes out there, at least if you're interviewing with Devon and myself. But for the folks that are listening, when you're telling your story, again, we want to hear a story. We have the resume in front of us, so just kind of going, well, when I first started, I did this, and then I did this, and then, like, that's obvious, right? It's evident on the document that you provided us. So tell the story, like you said, focus on the things that you are most passionate about, but also learn how to tell a story. It's so powerful it's a skill to be able to do that when you're influencing people, when you're trying to communicate a message, as a leader, as a facilitator, as a salesperson, really in all of these different, spaces that you might find yourself in, being able to really tell a story and have somebody feel the ins and outs and the different parts of that and where you're coming from, I think is just, it's always a powerful thing, again, when you're trying to influence somebody. And we're both doing that, right? I mean, they're definitely obviously trying to influence us. So the better you get at those skills in interviewing, the better chance you're gonna have. But to a certain extent, we're trying to sell ourselves, because you mentioned you want to make sure that it is a good fit for both parties. I think about the Venn diagram, because that's been coming up in some conversations I've had recently over the last few weeks, and so, you're really taking a look at what is it that, as an individual, you're most passionate about. And then, what are those skills that you bring to the table? So what are the things that you're truly, truly competent in? And then what are the needs of the business, right? So in this particular position, we're looking to fill some spots. We have needs that we have as a leader, as a team, as a company. Does this person have the right type of passion, and do they have the right type of skills and competencies where we can bring them in and we feel like it is going to be a really, really good fit? So for that person, they would find themselves, if you look at those 3 circles, within that sweet spot where they're getting paid, right? They have a job, they're happy about that, but more importantly, they're very passionate about the work that you're allowing them to do, and they have a very decent level, a high level of competency within the skills that they bring to the table. So helping, as a leader and going through the interviewing process, thinking about those things as well. You may find somebody who, from the conversation and everything that you can see, like, they might be a really, really great candidate, but to your point, if they're looking to move on in 6 to 7 months, and that's just not the plan that we have, as great of a talent and skill set they may bring to the table, that it's not going to be right for your plan. It's not going to be right for your team and what you're trying to accomplish. So continue to work that process until you find something that's going to be good for you and good for them as well. So it's a win-win for both parties.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So get really good at storytelling, y'all. It's a good skill to have for sure. So a lot of rightly so, there's been a lot of conversation, more so over the last few months, about diversity and inclusion, and when that conversation comes up, people tend to speak about it kind of from a certain perspective, or coming at it from a particular place, which we definitely don't disagree with, right? I mean, when you're looking at a leadership team, you would hope that there's diversity in what you see, and the experiences, the color of folks and where they come from and their education and things like that. but you also had kind of a different perspective as well when you think about diversity and inclusion. So I was interested for me to hear a little bit more about that, but obviously to share with our legacy leaders kind of where you're coming from in regards to that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So this is something that honestly, I've just been able to continue to educate myself on and just kind of refine over time and talk to individuals who are in the kind of the diversity and inclusion space. And, they really study, practice, advise, consult organizations on these type of things, right? I think you kind of called out a lot of time the knee-jerk reaction when you're thinking about diversity and inclusion is to think, okay, so we're talking about ethnicity, racial, we're talking about gender, we're talking about orientation, right? We're talking about age, so I need to make sure that I have a mix of those things, right? And to your point, yeah, your leadership team, your organization should be a mirror of the community. It should be a mirror of those that you're entrusted to steward, right? I think the more that you are able to identify individuals from those kind of diverse walks of life and those diverse backgrounds and put them into the necessary spaces where they can bring those thoughts and those perspectives to the table, the organization is better for it. I just think, again, organizations and leaders, we act, to be honest with you, we deliver our best product, our best version of leadership through collaboration and shared thought and diversity of thought, right? But outside of the traditional, gender orientation, racial age, diversity, it's also about diversity in experiences. And I think that's really the one that gets looked over from time to time. Even if you are the most diverse and inclusive organization, that's one of the things I think that we kind of miss on as hiring leaders or hiring managers, is the diversity in experiences. And I think that's really helpful. Like, I think about, just myself, and what I bring to the table. We have a good friend of ours, Rico, shout out Rico. Rico is a learning development professional for Facebook. And we both have had a hand in a little bit of his development. You've had a big role in his development and get him on the learning development path. And so to see him kind of blossom and grow has been, just amazing for all of us, man. So shout out Rico. I know he's listening. And also we probably need your help with some of this podcast stuff. See if you can help us out with some animated videos. Or
Teamwork,
like
man. Teamwork.
Social media consultant. Holla at Zuckerberg for us. But I think about his background and kind of my experiences and my background, or even my brother-in-law. Again, he's has a different background than I. We're both around the same age, right? All of us are around the same age, all three of us. Both of us are African American males, right? So similar generation, so we like similar things, right? And we kind of had similar upbringings from that perspective. But I think about myself personally. Like I experienced high school. I went to a private school in Orlando. I had the opportunity coming out of middle school to play sports, and that gave me the chance to have my education paid for at this private school. And I think about the value that experience offered me, because when you talk about diverse experiences, right, here I am attending one of the most well-known private schools in the Central Florida area, and I'm going to school with I'm going to school with like Ken Griffey Jr.'s kids, Grant Hill's kids, Doc Rivers' kids, Thurman Thomas's kids, John Talley's kids.
Wow.
Right. Just a bunch of very well-off individuals. We'll just put it that way, right? Not just athletes, right? But people who come from the financial sector, people who are bank executives and run their own businesses, right? And so I'm in multi-million-dollar homes and stuff like that, right? And here I am, the son of a financial aid assistant and a correction officer, right? In those same rooms, and for me, I had the opportunity. I was fortunate enough to have the experience of talking to, very wealthy individuals, multimillionaires, as a teenager. You know what I mean? And so, I can't discredit the value that those experiences created for me as I moved on in my life and I started to, be in boardrooms and sit across from, venture capitalist firms and have to engage in those discussions about my business. Well, there was no intimidation on my part because I've been talking to, very well-off people or, very educated people since, I was a teenager, like learning how to drive, right? And so there's a lot of value in those experiences in comparison to maybe somebody like Rico or somebody like my brother-in-law who went to public school, or my sister. Hell, even my sister. My sister and I are 2 years apart. My sister went to public school, right? And so it's not that one is better or worse. There were skill sets that she developed, to be honest with you, that were, more valuable and better in some respects than some of the skill sets I developed, right? I just think about the autonomy that she had to have as a sophomore, junior, and a senior versus somebody like myself. I'm going to a private school. They pride themselves on their graduation rate. So, my sophomore, my junior year, there's parts of the year like I had my hand held to make sure my assignments were getting done and people were double checking on me, and I had an abundance of resources versus my sister. You're one of 2,000, or something like that. Like you're one of hundreds and hundreds in your graduating class. So like, if you want it, go get it, and if you don't want it, well, all right, we got more people coming in, right? So
Yeah.
I think just those diversity and experiences people bring with them to the table, right? And I think you can't discredit that. It allows you to just have, again, just diverse thoughts and perspectives when you're making big decisions. The fact that, I bring to the table, like just like you, we bring to the table experience traveling around the country and having to do drop-ins and do performance consultation or rollout training, right? So imagine what you're bringing to the table or bringing to a space, right? A leadership team, when you have that experience of having to drop in, interact with people you've never met before, get buy-in, get influence, get them to adopt the behavior, and you have a week and a half to do that.
Yeah.
And then you're flying back out, and there has to be embedment. Well, obviously that brings a different level of value to the table than the individual whose only learning development experience has been face-to-face in a four-walled environment, and that's the extent of how they've been able to train, right? And so I think it's important when you think about diversity is also trying to amass diversity in experiences. People who have worked for, some of them, the major, Fortune, 500, 100 companies. I think there's a lot of value in bringing people like that to the table, but there's also a hell of a lot of value in bringing people who have had to build startups from scratch to the table too, because that entrepreneurial experience is a lot different than stepping into an environment that's already buttoned up and, you're having to navigate the complexity of a large organization. And so even within the team that I have today, there's a lot of diversity and experiences. One of the leaders that I have in my organization, I've been extremely impressed with. He comes from that kind of small startup type background. You know what I mean? He's working for an organization that they had to build out a call center. It's probably at most like 100 heads, and it was onshore and then it was offshore. So you have to travel to the Philippines in order to help them with their call center operations, and he was responsible for it, right? And so in the totality of his leadership scope, he's led maybe about 110 people, right? And then you look at, some other folks that I have on my team that have come from, Amazon, eBay, Virgin, right? These individuals have led, 200, 300 people in their down chain. There's a difference in experience, multiple sites, large BPOs that operate across the world, right? There's a difference in their experiences versus his experiences, and both are extremely valuable when you mix them together, right? And so I think it's important when you're looking to create a diverse team. Again, you're not just focused on solely the how people look, right, or people's preferences and stuff like that. You want to make sure that your organization is a mirror of the community, but you also really start to think about the diversity experiences. Oh, okay, I got somebody who's worked for a large company. I got somebody who's worked for a startup, right? So they're both going to have different perspectives. And when we're making decisions on how we handle stuff or roll stuff out, they're both going to be able to bring something to the table that's going to allow us to produce the best product possible.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's I think that's getting back to kind of the last section right before this, the importance of telling your story, because if you're that candidate sitting in there, how are you able to tell the story of these experiences? Again, you don't know the experiences of the different candidates or maybe the other people that, this leader, this potential boss has on the team. But how do you tell that story and allow those experiences to come to light and have confidence in that, have confidence in what I've done and how that's led me to the point I'm at today? Because there's so many, so much different value in those examples that you just provided. Somebody who's maybe worked in a very small call center as opposed to somebody else working at a much, much larger company. And then how, as a leader, how do you pull from all of those different experiences and take advantage of that? It's definitely an important, again, kind of different view when you think about diversity. Not just diversity in some of the key things that we typically think about, but also that diverse experience that we all have that we bring to the table, and just the different personalities and with those experiences, how that makes this person unique and makes them the individual that they are.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think, and it's funny because you're talking about the importance in telling your story. I would say that the thing that a lot of people sleep on over and over again is they sleep on what they've done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of our listeners can relate to this. We have all had experiences doing a lot of really impressive stuff that is not in our job title. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So just the title itself is not going to be able to tell you the full story. That's why it is on the candidate to be able to tell their story and kind of really give you a totality of all the things that they've done. But you also have to be open to that as a leader, as you're trying to get these diverse experiences. Being open to the fact that, hey, just because their experience may not be traditionally what I would look for, it doesn't mean that there's not value in some of that diverse experiences. There's individuals that I've interviewed that, I know we're talking a little bit about contact centers because, that's the space that we kind of operate in right now, but there's been people that have applied for contact center positions for me that I've made a decision to hire that have no contact center experience. They come from traditional retail, but as they've told their story, there's areas where I can see the competencies translate effectively, right? Where, you've, right now everybody's trying to find people who have managed in remote environments. So when I'm dealing with somebody who was a regional store manager and had several stores across the, greater South Florida area. And so they're essentially ensuring that there's consistency in processes and sales and experience and, the whole nine in these areas that they're not traveling to, right? So how do you make sure that the thing that's happening in Vero Beach is the same thing that's happening in Hollywood or Hialeah, right? How are they using technology? How are they engaging with their folks? How are they ensuring consistency? And those competencies translate into the contact center space, because leadership is leadership, right? And so it's also on you as the hiring manager to be open, again, to those diverse experiences and not just go in saying, well, they need to have the same experiences that I've had, right? You need to have worked in some type of BPO space. You need to have, you should have come from a traditional L&D position and worked your way up from trainer to instructional to all these different things, right? Or they need to have instructional designer in their title. I mean, I'll be real with you. I think about you, for example, bro. Your title nowhere near encompasses all the things that we've been able to partner on. Let alone the stuff that you've been able to do outside of our relationship. We've handled recruiting stuff. You've done ID work for me. You've created videos, content, curriculum, facilitator guides, PGs, and if you look at your title, you're really just responsible by title for ensuring consistency and facilitation. You know what I mean? And so if I only looked at your title and didn't really hear your story and hear those diverse experiences, I wouldn't know all the things you bring to the table and really understand the value in, he doesn't have instructional designer on as a role that he's worked in, but all the work he's done is ID work.
Yeah.
So yeah, he would be a good fit for this role. You know what I mean? So again, the ownership is definitely on the candidate to tell their story, but also for you as a hiring manager to be open to those diverse experiences that may not align with traditionally what you would think somebody, that you're going to hire should have in their resume. So
yeah, I think that it's important for the leader to know, and really this is what we've been conversating about over the last few episodes, is I'm not just looking for specific bullets on a resume. I know what skills I'm looking for. I know what competencies I'm looking for. I know what type of characteristics and values, that I'm looking for within a particular candidate that speaks volumes, more so than what's just on the resume itself. So being able to sift through this story and say, okay, again, I'm not being closed-minded into, looking for somebody that has this specific experience, but being able to listen and really hear them tell their story, and again, speak to those different things. Even when I was going through, within the last few weeks, the interviewing for instructional designer, someone had reached out to me, a candidate that was interested, and this is happening a lot, I believe, these days, just from what I'm able to see and observe. You have a lot of folks that are in typical educational roles, like teachers, and they're trying to move into that instructional design space. And this person kind of fit that mold. And, K through 12 educator, and, was looking to be an instructional designer. So if they didn't have a connection that was able to reach out to me, and they just sent their resume into the recruiter, based on what, typically I said, the recruiter may not have sent that person over to me. But, you talked earlier about being able to communicate through the resume. One thing that I didn't say earlier that to me is very important as well is, yes, how you articulate what you're trying to say on the resume, but also the creativity, that you use to display those things, especially if you're talking about learning and development and instructional design. So as I reviewed the resume, but more importantly, saw this individual's online portfolio and some of the things that they were able to do, like, I realized, no, this person they have some skills. At least I see enough that I want to talk to them. Like, let's get the interview going, and let me be able to hear their story and hear a little bit more about their passions and what's leading them down this path. So I can make a much more educated decision than just looking at the resume itself. And then, it was, just thinking about some of the experiences, that it was just really cool, seeing a connection post something about somebody that they know, and you see this little piece of micro learning content, and then you start following that person. You go to the Instagram account and see some of the work that they're doing that has nothing to do with instructional design, but they're using those skill sets really as a marketer, online and on Instagram. And especially when you're talking about what we do, whether it's, engagement initiatives, whether it's learning initiatives and projects, being able to market these things is hugely important, to get people interested, to get them excited. And then you deliver it, and then continue some of that, that drip marking before and afterward to get the embedment and sustainment, again, whatever this project or initiative is. So having those skill sets are huge value, but that might not be something that you're going to put on your resume. So again, being able to speak to those things creatively, it's just going to bode well for the individual who's looking to maybe get on Devon's team, yeah, for sure. Or on my team when the opportunity presents itself. Definitely looking to solidify that in the future too. So man, we've been able to knock out a couple of different aspects, really starting to kind of tie up very nicely with a bow these conversations that we've been having over the last few episodes. So at the beginning, you talked about making sure that you're not over-indexing what you're looking for. I'm not going to over-index internal candidates, which is very good for morale. You have, especially depending on how long they've been there's that institutional knowledge that you can take advantage of, and then not over-indexing on the other end and saying, well, yeah, we have these folks that have been here, but all of the new spots are going to be filled with external candidates. We talked about articulation in written communication, also bringing some creativity to that. And if you need some assistance, please look for it. I mean, definitely Google, right, is always there for you to be able to research and see, you know, the different styles of resumes these days to help you stand out in, you know, the sea of 3, 4, I've seen 700 people applying to roles. You know, so how do you help yourself stick out? Well, again, bringing creativity to how you communicate those things on your resume is going to be of huge benefit to you. And then once you've landed the opportunity to be able to get into the interview, how do you go about telling your story? Because you might have somebody like Devon who says, hey, kind of just tell me your story. Kind of tell me, you know, how you got to this point and what led you here. And then, you know, for the leaders out there looking to build teams, again, thinking about, you know, that diversity in, again, not just the typical things that we may look at, gender, age, ethnicity, but also taking a look at the diversity in experiences that we all bring to the table and how important that is to when you're looking to fill gaps. And again, really add the right components and the right pieces. I said it earlier, I'll say it again, you know, as a leader, one of the most important decisions you can make, and it's just critical, is who you bring to your team and who you add to your team. So continue to think about those things. What we have, you know, for you guys as we move into next week as well, we're going to continue this path, but really kind of take it from a different perspective. We wanted to talk more for our legacy leaders about, you know, being a leader and what we're looking for when we're trying to make those decisions and add people to our team. Well, what if you are sitting on the other side of that table and you're the person being interviewed? As we go into our next Mentored by Adversity episode, which is going to be episode number 12, our next guest is going to be Daylin Perez, and she is owner and CEO of a company that does just that helps people with their resumes and interviewing skills, the Professional Pantry. So we're very excited about bringing her on and giving her an opportunity, number one, to hear about her story and, you know, diversity that she's been through and how that has developed the leader that she is today, but also give her an opportunity to provide just a few tips to our folks out there, again, who might find themselves, you know, in that spot where they're looking for that next opportunity right now, whether they're secure in a job, but again, are just trying to find that next opportunity within or externally, or, you know, one of those individuals who are just out of work right now, you know, like so many Americans today, and are looking, you know, for that next spot to secure for themselves and kind of get themselves back on track with that. So definitely looking forward to that as we're looking forward to that next episode. And again, episode 12 and our next, really the third installment of Mentored by Adversity MBA series. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. I can't wait.
So for our legacy leaders, we started with this, and we're going to end with this. 3 things that we're asking you to do. Number 1, subscribe, like, leave a comment, hit the little bell, the alert bell, so you always know when we're dropping our new videos and vlogs out there for you. Step number 2, take that screenshot, whether you're listening to us on the podcast, or you're watching on the YouTube channel, hit the button, take a screenshot, post that on Instagram, and then tag us at Legacy Leadership, at Coach_Jimmie G Jr., at Leadership Docent, and leave us some comments as well. Again, we just want to be able to hear from you, know that you're listening, know that you're out there. We like the feedback. You know, we love talking and putting the content out there and providing value. You know, but when we get the feedback and we hear back from you guys, especially if you take that extra step of love and do some screenshots and share that on Instagram, it just lets us know that you are out there, that you are listening, and again, that you truly are getting value from the conversations that we're having. And in doing so, share with other friends and family, whether that's on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, we're everywhere. We're on Twitter, and definitely on, you know, all of the major podcast platforms. Share with friends and family, and then share with other leaders that are seasoned. We have a lot of seasoned, you know, leaders and veterans in the game, in the corporate game, that we've been getting good feedback from. Again, good reminders and different perspectives. And if you're new, you know, to leadership, and you're growing and you're developing, obviously we're here for you as well. So make sure that you're sharing that with leaders that you know, and folks that are looking to be a leader worth following, and then taking it to that next level and helping others and develop and helping them to do the same so that we all can leave a legacy for generations to come. So on that note, we thank you guys very much for riding with us. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And until next time, this is Jimmie Gonzalez Jr. and my co-host, Anthony Devon Watts Jr. Take care, everybody. God bless and stay encouraged.
Thank you.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.
You have just listened to the Legacy and Leadership Podcast, hosted by Jimmie Gonzalez and Devon Watts. Thank you, and we hope that you live, lead, and leave a legacy worth remembering. Until next time.